He's turned out to be that I knew he would be. He doesn't care about people. And the pros he puts in place, the executives he's going to sign, he's going to do that without any thought of who it's really going to hurt. And I just brought all this talk with even our allies, the military, that he can order done today. And he comes back, will show he's going to do.
Sue there in Ohio, here from David Public.
Today, I have noticed a difference in money goes.
President St. John's White House, the Capitol, are the protectors that are needed today. Natalie in Virginia, independent line.
Effort going into that, and we'll just have to wait and see.
It is going to be interesting. Our senior producer, Julianne, is going to try and work to pull up the video for the Capitol Rotunda to just show just how large it is. But no doubt they are going to be at capacity inside, as of course everyone wants to be part of this historic moment right there. Another live look at the U.S. Capitol, and you can see on the left-hand side of your screen the tree without leaves shaking in the wind, and once again just a visible reminder as to why all of this has now evolved, has morphed into an indoor events day. It's because of the bitter cold, and of course most of these swearing-in ceremonies held outdoors for the public to attend, and so many folks have had those tickets in hand, ready to wait in line, and that has been drastically changed right here. But my producer just sharing this with us. This, of course, is from the Republican Party. It says the location may have changed, but crews are already hard at work to ensure a successful inauguration and a peaceful transfer of power. So this is a look right there at walking up the steps, walking into the Capitol Rotunda right there. And to your point, Andrew, it gives us a better idea about, the capacity of this, and I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but, no doubt people are going to be able to be seated. But I also have to imagine it might be standing room only, as so many people do want to make sure that they attend today's historic swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, who is seated or standing where. Obviously, that's a much easier to do on the dais outside in the front of the U.S. Capitol, because you can see it very, very clearly. But we're going to see a jam-packed Capitol Rotunda, and it'll be interesting to see who is seated next to who or standing next to who, and who gets that prime placement in front of the cameras here. Of course, a big kind of storyline in all of this, Stephanie, is who's not attending today. You and I have discussed that. We discussed that on Friday. The AP reported last week former First Lady Michelle Obama will not be there. We also know it was reported that former Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi won't be there, and some of these other prominent Democrats like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She came out on Instagram Live just over the weekend saying that she would not be there as well. So I think it's interesting, to your point, to just say who will and who won't be
gets
there.
A bus
I'm always looking for that.
Mossy gets rent.
It is going to be interesting, the who's who, so to speak.
Free.
And Andrew, we are going to step away for a 2-minute break, but after that, we do want to bring in presidential historian Jim Robenal to talk more about the historic events that we are going to be seeing, and couching it when it comes to looking ahead, but also looking behind, because the present and the future are always influenced by the past. And we're going to have that interesting conversation coming up after the break. Andrew, we'll be right back. Welcome back to our Live Now from Fox Inauguration Day 2025 coverage as we look ahead to the official swearing-in ceremony of President-elect Donald J. Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. I'm Stephanie Quinu, and you're taking a live look right here at a very chilly Capitol building right there with the American flags, and you can actually see the stage had been set for the upcoming swearing-in ceremony. Unfortunately, you can also see not a person right there on the mall. Typically, crowds would have already walked in preparing in anticipation for this historic moment because of the weather, because of the dangerously cold temperatures and the wind chill. The swearing-in ceremony is now going to be held inside the Capitol Rotunda. Just the second time, the last time being back in 1985 for former President Ronald Reagan's second swearing-in ceremony. And a lot of disappointed people, as you can imagine, making the journey to Washington, D.C. to witness this historic moment as President-elect Trump to be sworn in as the 47th president. He was sworn in first 8 years ago as the 45th president. So just the second president to be elected non-consecutively, Grover Cleveland, in fact, being the very first president to have that happen. And to give more on this historical perspective, we do want to bring in Jim Robinault, who is a presidential historian and a friend of Live Now from Fox. And Jim, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on this Inauguration Day.
Hi, Andrew. Good to see you.
And we are taking a live look, Jim, at St. John's Church, where President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance are inside, along with a number of notables. Andrew and I have been discussing this all morning long in terms of who will be attending. And it is very significant in terms of who is being allowed inside the Capitol Rotunda to witness this historic moment, because these are a select few handpicked by President-elect Trump. What do you make of those who we know will be in attendance, Jim?
Well, I think that, it's a very small space, actually. And if I told Andrew last week that if you go back and watch the inaugural of Reagan in 1985, everybody is standing. It looks like that's what's going to be the case here, so they can get more people in there. If they had chairs, it'd be even less. I think they estimated about 1,000 people made it into Reagan's inaugural inside the Capitol. If they had chairs, it'd probably be only about 600 people. So it's a very confined space. As I understand it, they're using the hall, the Great Hall that's just been built in front of the Capitol, the entrance to the Capitol, for overflow. For 1,800 guests who will be there. It's a beautiful space, but it's not like being there in person. So it's going to be a very intimate affair. And I think in Reagan's case in 1985, it did provide a nice backdrop for him inside the Capitol, and with all these people standing around and standing next to each other as he gave his speech.
I just wanted to bring up, we do have some reporting in, if we could take the shot outside St. John's Church. Bloomberg's reporting some of those who are in attendance with the president-elect and the vice president-elect. I'm learning, and they're learning, Mark Zuckerberg is there, Jeff Bezos is there, Tim Cook is there, the TikTok CEO, Shao Chu, is there. Also, Argentinian leader Javier Milei is there, and the former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson among those in attendance for the service there. Jim, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. I know it's early, but I got to ask, because I don't want to belabor this point here today because it's about Donald Trump's inauguration, but we have to ask you what President Biden just issued about 2 hours ago, preemptive pardons for a slew of Trump critics. Now, in just about an hour's time, Biden and Trump will be in the same car together. They'll be exchanging pleasantries. And he just delivered this parting shot to his longtime political rival. And we could get into what a preemptive pardon is, if any presidents have ever done that. What do you make of that, that this one last final barb to a political foe he delivered with hours left as president?
Well, it's interesting, Andrew. I mean, the pardon power is a really important part of our history. If you go back to the beginning of the country, there was a rebellion in the country by people who had served in the Continental Army who were not getting their pay and whose homes were being, taken from them. It was called Shays' Rebellion. That rebellion led to the need for a constitutional convention in our Constitution. It brought George Washington out of retirement and back into political life. So that rebellion was much about trying to quell people who had been violent, who had stormed courthouses to stop court proceedings and so forth. And that's why the pardon power was put into our Constitution, was to allow a president to calm take the temperature down, to end something that could be, a very dangerous rebellion against the nation itself, and pardon people like Colonel Shays or Captain Shays. That power also was shown at the end of the Civil War with the general amnesty that was issued to the Confederate soldiers. And there was actually an act of Congress under the 14th Amendment for that. Then you get to, the First World War, and Warren Harding very courageously gave a pardon to Eugene Debs, who was a socialist leader who ran for president 4 times. He ran against Harding in the election of 1920, and Harding commuted his sentence. He had been put in jail for speaking out against the war, and many considered him a traitor for doing that, but a lot of people felt that was just First Amendment right to protest against a war. And when Harding did that, his entire cabinet was not in favor of it. His wife was not in favor of it. But the point was to try to settle things and heal wounds. So we saw it with Nixon. We saw it with Carter with the Vietnam vets. It's a power that is used at moments like this. And it's to be compared to, what Donald Trump has said he's going to do with the January 6 people when he gets into office. Right. So it's a very important power, actually, and it's important to try to put some disputes in the past and not keep fighting about things that just will go on and on. Long history, long answer to that, but that's the history of the pardon power, and it's absolute under the Constitution.
And Jim, I just wanted to let our viewers see this live look right here as we do see President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden welcome in Vice President Harris and a second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, right there, as they are also preparing to participate in this swearing-in ceremony. Of course, having that farewell ceremony as well. We see them, standing at attention. And I also want to bring in this, Jim, because there's the political dynamic that we're going to see at play today right here as well. And even in the same party, you take a look at this and you see President Biden really being forced out by his own party, and then Vice President Harris tapped to take on President-elect Trump. And we see this, we're also going to see this at play, during the swearing-in ceremony, as we also talk about who will be there and, of course, who will not be there. And we do know that Michelle Obama will not be in attendance. She wasn't at the funeral service for former President Jimmy Carter, also not attending the swearing-in ceremony. And that's getting a lot of chatter. What can you make of that, Jim? What can you share with us in terms of that perspective?
Well, again, if you look at our history, we've had, I think, 4 different presidents who have not attended their successors' inauguration, all the way back to 1801 when John Adams, the second president, refused to attend the ceremony for Thomas Jefferson. In 1801, a very bitter campaign, and Adams got up at 4 in the morning and left the Capitol rather than attend. His son, John Quincy Adams, did not attend when Jackson came in too. Another cantankerous time. What I would point out is, I think we ought to look back. Reagan's inaugural, his very first inaugural, when he defeated Jimmy Carter. Again, bitter campaign. Carter was bitterly disappointed. Reagan got up and he started his inaugural by saying that the orderly transfer of authority as called by the Constitution routinely takes place, as it has for almost 2 centuries. And few of us stop to think about how unique we really are. In the eyes of many in the world, this every 4 year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle. In the very next statement, he spoke to Carter, calling him Mr. President. I want the nation to know how you've helped me in this transition of power. That is something that we should not take for granted. It's good that President Biden and that Vice President Harris are going to be attending. It's very important that they do that. For his own reasons, Donald Trump did not attend 4 years ago, but we need to reestablish that and keep that as the peaceful transfer of power in our government, or we don't have much of a government. But it's good to look back at somebody like Reagan, who was very gracious about it, very gracious with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter before him had been very gracious with Gerald Ford after Watergate, who had pardoned Richard Nixon, by the way, and one of the reasons he didn't win. So as I see it, it's important that the president and vice president attend. Other people like Michelle Obama can make their own decisions. I would prefer that she would come rather than have the distraction, but it's definitely her decision about what to do. As I understand it, President Obama is going to be attending. So this is an important point and an important moment in our constitutional government. And really, we see a lot of grace by many people who have gone through this. And we also see others who have decided not to attend. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, it's no stranger to anyone that it's hard to lose. It's hard to lose on such a public stage as a U.S. presidential election. I want to talk, though, with you about the inaugural address, and we can maybe get into what your favorite inaugural address is as the presidential historian. Mine is Lincoln's second inaugural here. But what will Trump say today? Will he, like Reagan, give a nod, give some words in his speech to both Biden and Harris in some show of grace? I'll be looking for that because obviously that portion in his first inaugural back in 2017, the American Carnage section, a lot of people infamously remember that. But he's saying his speech is going to be one of unity today.
And I also wanted to share with our viewers, Andrew, Jim, before you answer that, it does appear that President-elect Trump is departing now. St. John's Church, we saw him alongside Melania Trump exiting the church. It does seem as though the service has wrapped up. They're walking hand in hand right there, and he's smiling to the crowd. Thank you, he says, mouthing those words and walking into the escort right there, the convoy. And I just wanted to share that with our viewers as we continue to take a live look. But, Andrew was sharing some of his favorite, inaugural speeches. Do you have one?
Yes. I mean, if you look at inaugurals, Andrew, as you've said, the message of unity is what's most important. And you see it again and again. A lot of these inaugurals considered one of the top 2 or 3 inaugurals.
You know, Jim, I also wanted to ask, too, because we are in 30 days of mourning as a country in the wake of the death of former President Carter. President Biden issuing the guidance and the order for all American flags on federal buildings to be lowered to half staff. But in the last couple of days, you've heard from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. You've heard from some Republican governors like Greg Abbott, like Ron DeSantis and others saying that for today, the American flag should be raised back to full staff. On some state houses, that is going to happen. But we're learning, according to some reports, that Speaker Johnson also had ordered that for the U.S. Capitol. But some reports saying right now that the staff, the crew are trying to bring it back to full staff, but the cords are frozen because it is so cold. I wanted to ask, though, was there a